Bing bong. I am back with another edition of the State of Bitcoin podcast where I have Gary Leland, the Bitcoin boomer himself, in the waiting room. We're going to talk about everything to do with Bitcoin, his backstory, BitBlock boom, and much, much more. So stay tuned for another action-packed episode. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button. Help a brother out. Help grow the program. But first, big shout out to the sponsor, Pleb Lab. I'm rocking the shirt today. So shout out to the boys, Carr and everybody down in Austin, Texas. If you haven't been down there yet, what the hell are you doing? You need to go down. They have a bunch of events around BitBlock Boom later this month. But they also have a Nomad Pass and a bunch of remote things. If you want to check out and help support Pleb Lab from a distance, you can do that. Check out pleblab.com. They got a Nostr Devs course. I believe it's only around like $30 and you get sats back if you purchase with Oshi. So be sure to check that out. And if you're planning on going to BitBlock Boom and you haven't bought your ticket yet, use promo code Green Candle and you'll get 10% off your whole order. Use that 10% to stack some more sats. Come and join a bunch of Bitcoiners down in Austin, and Gary and I will dive all right into, the plans and everything like that for the conference. So enough from me. Let's bring Gary on up. Gary, how you doing today, man?
Yo, doing good. I didn't know that Pleb Lab was a sponsor. That's a good group of guys down there. We have Testnet, Super Testnet is doing a workshop conference, and Carr's going to be there, and Michael with Oshi's going to be at the conference exhibition hall. So, yeah, I didn't know they were involved as a sponsor. Very good. They were good guys doing God's work down there.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, Pleb Lab's absolutely amazing. I mean, the Bitcoin scene in Texas in general is just crazy. So, let's start there. You're having the conference in Austin, Texas. So, from you, you brought up, Super Testnet, Carr, Pleb Lab, Michael from Oshi, like a bunch of these guys who are, building, doing absolute great things. So, what was the motivation to, kind of keep it rolling and bring the conference BitBlock Boom to Austin?
Well, I just thought Austin, Austin is the tech hub, I actually think, here's my laydown. I think Miami is like the crypto conference capital or the crypto capital of the United States, but I think Austin's the Bitcoin capital of the United States. So when I started getting to a certain level on the conference, it just kind of made sense to go to Austin.
Yeah.
And move down there. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of people building things in Austin. I mean, it seems like it's a central hub, right? You have the Commons, you have, obviously BitBlock Boom now, for that big conference, and then you have Pleb Lab, of course, too. But let's back it up a little bit. Let's tell us the orange pill story. How did you find Bitcoin? And let's go from there.
Well, I found out about Bitcoin when it was like around $100, I guess. I went to go see an old podcasting friend of mine in Dallas, and another podcasting friend of mine was there, and people were walking into his office. It was like an office sharing place, and people were walking out, and they were giving him money, and he was handing them thumb drives. And I was like, Mark, what the hell are you doing? And he goes, well, they're buying Bitcoin from me. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. He goes, well, it's kind of like online stocks. That's how he explained it. I said, never mind. I'm not interested in that at all. And so I passed that opportunity up. And then I heard a friend of mine, Adam Curry, kept talking about Bitcoin. Someone gave him 33 of them, as a tip for his show that he used to do, Daily Source Code, back in 2004, 2005, I think. And he was telling me about it. I said, oh, that's kind of cool. So I was kind of interested in it, but I didn't hear enough about it. Then I was speaking at a conference, a Big D conference in Dallas, and a friend of mine, Tony, after I finished speaking, I'm walking down the hall, and my friend Tony is standing there talking to 3 or 4 of my friends, actually, about Bitcoin. And I think I must have came in on the last 10 minutes of the conversation. But during that time period, he said that it was the missing protocol for the internet. There was not a protocol for money. And that was the only protocol that was really missing. And, I did my first e-commerce site in 96. And by that time, I had maybe 20 websites, selling products, plus my podcasting websites. And so I said, hey, that really interested me since it was about something I did for a living, a new protocol. I said, can we talk about that? I only heard the last 10 minutes and I've heard of it before. So I think it's like 1 o'clock. We sat on the couch, and at 6 o'clock, we still were sitting on the couch talking about Bitcoin. And so I left and went home and found the podcast about Bitcoin and listened to it on the way home. When I got home, I called him up and said, hey, are you going to be at that conference tomorrow? And he goes, yeah, it's only a mile from my house. I said, well, it's 30 miles from my house, but I'm going to come back and you can talk to me some more. So I drove over there and we sat on the couch and talked from about 9 to noon. Then he took me to his house and showed me his mining machines. And I came home that night and started buying Bitcoin. So that's, so don't tell people it's like online stock. Every time I see that guy, I tell him how many millions of dollars he cost me. If I'd have bought it a lot earlier, it was a lot cheaper. I'd have what, 30 times as much Bitcoin. Yeah.
Man, that's awesome. Well, that's a great story, but I mean, it is interesting, right? I mean, because you've kind of seemed, you have like an e-commerce background, so you've kind of always been, maybe it's towards the beginning of like these tech runs, with the .com boom and everything like that. So, let's talk about that. I mean, for people, I mean, I'm not gonna preface it, right? I mean, there's usually when it comes to tech, it's a lot of kids my age, maybe a little bit younger, but you yourself, you're a Bitcoin boomer, self-proclaimed, and a lot of people when it comes to tech, and as they get older, they get a little bit more scared. So why didn't Bitcoin, I guess, scare you off in a sense when it is kind of cryptography, right? The shadowy supercoder kind of thing.
Yeah, I didn't see it as that. I really never saw it as that. Even when Ross's situation, I didn't see it as that. I mean, I've never seen it as that. I've always seen it for what it is. It's freedom money, is what it is. I think I grew up I was in high school during the Vietnam War, and all my friends were going to Vietnam. So I maybe grew up a little more as a protester as a kid. Long-haired hippie freak that was against the war when I was in high school. So I saw it from that aspect as freedom money. I never saw it that way. And you're right, though. Most of my friends are so non-techie that it's amazing, And the worst part of that, to be honest with you, speaking from, which young people don't care about, but since you asked, I'm going to explain it. The worst part about that is when you go to a party. You go to a party Saturday night and there's like 50 people there and you know them all and they're all like around your age and there's nobody you can really have a conversation with about anything you're interested in. They either want to talk about their grandkids, which are fine. I have grandkids, but that's not my life. I don't want to talk about every time I'm talking about something. That's not my own stuff. Or they want to play with golf, talk about golf. I don't play golf. It takes up too much time. But seriously, nobody out of the 50 people will know anything about tech. They may know how to open their email and they may know how to get on Facebook. So it's really kind of hard to enjoy yourself at parties. And my wife has to tell me, do not tell these people about Bitcoin when you get there because they don't care. I said, well, they always ask me. I don't know what to tell you. But I think that happens to everybody, no matter how old you are. So that's not an old person thing. But yeah, it's hard to hang out with your peers and have a conversation about something you're interested in if you're really into tech. Because it's like when I was in podcasting. I started my first podcast in like 2004. I was one of the first 50 podcasters on the planet. I'm in the Podcast Hall of Fame now. And when I was like mesmerized with it, I said, this is great technology. This is going to change the world, which it did. It changed a lot. It changed media as we know it today. But anyone I told about it, they couldn't see it at all. I got a radio in the car. Why would I want a podcast? I don't understand. And then they just couldn't get it, Why would I pay for that? I get it free now. Why would I pay for anything paid? So I ran into the same thing. So I've run into that. And when I started my first e-commerce site in '96, everybody said it was stupid. Nobody's going to buy stuff on the internet. And I said, well, I would buy stuff on the internet. And I think I sold my store 2 years ago, the store and websites, that I started in 1996. And I ended up with 20 different ones. So I'm used to that. You kind of get used to that, If you're thinking outside the box, that's it. Majority of people don't think outside the box. That's it. They just do what they do and they keep doing it. And if something new comes along, they don't want to change because they like what they're doing. It's like when I moved to Texas in '79, I sold cable TV door to door. And it was so new that they would actually pay us to go knocking on people's doors going, I want cable TV. We're here to hook you up for cable TV, free installation. And we would get $20 a house, which was a lot of money back then in 79. You know, my rent was $125 with free electricity. So $20 a house was good money for talking them into buying cable. So the biggest thing you had, though, young people, even then, which I was a young person then, I was like 24, young people always wanted it, especially if they were in the service because they lived somewhere where they had cable. But an old person like myself, the answer would always be, I've always had 3 TV channels. That's all I'm ever going to need is 3 TV channels, because old people don't want to change. They're in a box and they don't want to get out of that box. And that's a shame. A long answer.
No,
Sorry.
That's a great answer. No, I appreciate it. But do you ever try to talk about like maybe the hard money principles or kind of the inflation aspect of Bitcoin when it comes to it, right? Because I think, the tech might be intimidating, right? But I mean, it seems like the hard money principles almost like resonate maybe with the younger generation a little bit more as well, because, we're the ones getting hit with inflation. We're seeing the younger generation doesn't necessarily have a lot of these assets, whether it's a large stock portfolio or, real estate or something like that.
Now, don't get me wrong. I never said I had a hard time talking him into buying Bitcoin.
Okay.
You just assumed that. I never said that. I talked Uber drivers into buying Bitcoin before we get where we're going. And whenever I'm at a Bitcoin conference, people, when we get out of a bunch of us get in an Uber car, they're always like, I can't believe that guy bought Bitcoin before we stop where we're at. But, I found the easiest way to orange pill somebody is to simply talk them into buying a small amount with whatever DCA tool you want to use, whether it's Swan, whether it's Drake, whatever. I'm one of the first advisors to Swan, so I own some of that in all openness. So if I'm talking about them, I guess I'm not talking about them just to push my value, but they're all the same. As far as what they do, dollar cost averaging. It's easy to talk someone into dollar cost averaging. That's what you do. You talk someone into dollar cost averaging. I'll give you an example. I talked a guy into dollar cost averaging who's a high value wealth guy, and I think he started. Okay, I'll do $100 every 2 weeks, and I'll go ahead and that, because that was just that wasn't even his dinner, one night. And he called me a month later, 2 months later, and said, okay, I just bought $100,000 worth. What should I do next? And I have that happen all the time, not always on that scale. I have someone I talk into buying 10,000, like my oldest friend since second grade. I called him up and said, man, Robert, when it was going up to 60, I said, you need to start buying. It was like maybe 25 at the time. This is going to really shoot up here for a while. You need to start buying some of this. So I talked him into buying $10 worth a week. And he called me 2 months later and said, okay, I just bought $10,000 worth. So he's not as high value. So if you can get people buying small quantities on a regular basis with a tool like Swan, where it sends them some information, it sends them updates, and so they look at it, they end up buying more. I mean, they really do. Now, that same person, Robert, who I talked about in second grade, when Bitcoin was $3,000, I talked him into buying some Bitcoin. And I don't know, maybe about a third of a Bitcoin, I guess, something like that, I think, at Coinbase. And he never looked at it again. So when it was going up to the run up to 60 or 69, whatever, when I called him, I originally said, have you looked at the price of your Bitcoin yet? The value of your Bitcoin you bought back in 2017? Have you looked at it lately? He goes, I haven't looked at it since I bought it in 2017. I said, well, you should open up that wallet and look at it. And he was like, oh my gosh, that's really done well. And then that's when I said, so what I'm saying that is he bought that and he made a ton off of it percentage wise, but he never bought any more because he never looked at it again and he never got educated. He just bought it because I told him to. But the same person, when I talked him into buying $10 worth a week or whatever, 2-3 months later, he bought $10,000 worth because he got educated on it, which he didn't plan on doing. So, because he was checking to see, he's getting email updates, telling him news articles, whatever. So, to me, that's the thing. If you want to really orange pill somebody, you need to get them dollar cost averaging, and the rest will magically happen all by itself. But if you talk them into buying it once, unless you're calling them every week and going, hey, open that wallet and see how much your stuff's worth, you should be buying some more. They are just going to buy that one time. So I'm a long-winded guy here. You don't have to. I can take up your whole hour probably with 5 questions.
That's perfectly fine, man. That's what these are for. But I kind of want to keep diving into this orange pill stuff because I think it's really interesting how you're going about it. Because I do think, like, for me, when I try to orange pill people, I always get Bitcoin and crypto kind of convoluted together, right? I mean, like, people always kind of want to group them together. They bring up FTX, like all the kind of big name news sources of the major exchanges crashing and all that kind of stuff. Have you ran into that any recently? Or has that, kind of, I guess, maybe swayed some people away from potentially, orange pilling or starting that DCA, you think?
What I normally hear from people, like last Friday night, myself, my wife, and 2 other couples went out to eat at a nice restaurant, and one of the guys, the guy who bought the $100,000 was there, and he's very happy. Bitcoin's gone up quite a bit since he bought that. And my other friend who has none was there, that couple, and he started a conversation about Bitcoin, blah, blah, blah. I said, yeah, I'm real happy. I'm still buying all the time. I still buy all the time. I mean, I dollar cost average. And he goes, but didn't it drop? That's what they used to say. But didn't it really drop a lot? And then, so that's what I find is the more thing that they have on their mind is not the fact that, we have Sam Bankman-Fried or we have whatever scam it was. It was worth $67,000 or whatever, and now it's worth 30, and they think it's worth 10. So that's their concern, is that it dropped. So that's the thing that more explaining goes into it. Explain, yeah, but it also dropped from 10,000 to 1,000 at one time, or 10,000 in 2017. It dropped from 19,000 to 3,500. Well, look, it's 30,000 today. It came back pretty damn strong. And there was a point in time where it would drop from 1,000 maybe to 100. Came back pretty damn strong. It's it's kind of like Michael Saylor's thing about New York, buying property in New York in the 1770s. You're kind of late to the game. No, you're not. I like that scenario. I use that a lot of the night. Well, I'm kind of late. All right. I said, no, you're not. So I find more people complain about, are worried about the fact that it's dropped. They don't understand the cycle nature of it, that it's dropped over and over and over and over, but every time it's roared back higher, which that's where we're at now. We're getting ready to hit that roar back higher. I'm real excited about the next year. I think this is such a good time in Bitcoin.
Yeah, so let's dive into that. So, what gets you most bullish, like, going forward, right? I mean, we have a lot of, it's been a long drawn out bear market, it seems, right? But there's been a lot of building in the background, right? I mean, we mentioned Pleb Lab at the beginning of this. A lot of these, companies are kind of popping up that are Bitcoin only and kind of building great products. So, is there something that has really stood out for you in this bear market that, gets you most excited about, this next potential bull run?
I think Lightning is going to be the deal. I think the use of Lightning and what's happening with Lightning is going to be a major thing. Now we see Coinbase using Lightning. I think I heard this morning interview with the president or somebody high up with Uber talking about it. I'm just saying Uber will definitely take that. It may not be right now, but they definitely will be taking Bitcoin and Lightning. But they will. I can't tell you when, but they will, he said. But I think Lightning is probably the biggest advantage, because now you can't say, I can't go buy a cup of coffee with that. It takes 10 minutes for that stuff to process, and it costs me $10 in fees to buy a cup of coffee. That whole conversation's gone. That's a real. If you were a salesperson, you want to get all your objections out of the way early. Like if you sold storm windows to people's houses and had to put a lien on their house, you'd want to get rid of the objection as to whether they own the house or not before you started selling them. If they said, I don't own the house, well, you go, all right, you got to take care of that. I can't sell you then. Or they said, I need my wife here to help me make that decision. Go, well, let's get her here. Let's take care of that objection. Then you can sell them. Well, if you're trying to convince someone on Bitcoin, you got to get rid of the objections. And that was one of them, is time to, I don't know why you need to buy a cup of coffee with Bitcoin, but that's the one you hear. I can't go to Starbucks and buy coffee with Bitcoin. So you got that off the table. That's gone. I think that's a big thing. I don't know if I explained that right. a complaint or a thing in the way there. That's how I feel about it.
No, I mean, I think you're nailing it on the head, right? I mean, I think like the payments, and I think like not only Lightning for payments and micro payments for coffee and other things like that in the U.S., but also it seems like the remittance market is ready for some disruption, right? I mean, we've seen Strike roll out in hundreds of countries at this point, it seems, and it seems like they're not really stopping with that. So, hopefully they continue, and they're using the Lightning Network to kind of help, facilitate a lot of those payments. And I think that's going to continue over time. But when it comes to Lightning, right? I mean, it does seem like there's a lot of development. It seems like some people struggle with running Lightning nodes opposed to I guess opposed to like just Bitcoin core nodes. So as far as like, I guess the adoption of Lightning, what do you think is like the biggest roadblock going forward that, maybe I guess will slow some of these major companies, right? I mean, you said it yourself, Uber's planning on doing it, but they don't know when. So what do you think is kind of slowing them down from accepting potential Lightning payments?
I guess the fact that the United States really hasn't come out with a set of rules or telling us what Bitcoin is. How they feel about Bitcoin. I mean, I don't know what the proper term would that be, but other countries do. Where the SEC just like doesn't answer questions even. Is Ethereum a currency or is it a security? They won't answer it. All they'll say is Bitcoin's not a security. That's all I've ever heard them say. They definitely said like things are securities, but they got an in between land. They won't answer the whole question. So I think until there's a set in place, a set determination by the U.S. government as to what's going to be treated, and I think a lot of people talk about ETFs coming, about BlackRock. They got $7 trillion. I would think with the value, that's like a small country, with the value and the pull they have, I would think they're going to move ahead of everybody else, even if they file for their ETF before them. I would think BlackRock would probably still get theirs approved first. Now, is that good for Bitcoin? I don't know. It's good for Bitcoiners. I mean, if you got Bitcoin, you're probably going to be real happy, but I don't know if it's good for Bitcoin long run. But when that happens, I would think that would take away that objection and any reasoning and doubt that we have. They're going to go, okay, the government's allowed them to have an ETF on this. They're moving forward. They're huge. They're not going to like change anything. So once it's done, they're not going to do anything to stop BlackRock from making money. Because BlackRock will probably just pay everybody they need to pay, to make sure that never happens. So I think that could be I think this BlackRock ETF could do a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree, right? I mean, if there's a lot of money, I mean, BlackRock owns like half the world. It seems like so. I mean,
if they want that to get approved, that's why I said they'll probably be the first one to get approved. And if anyone tries to like do anything against it, they'll just pay everybody they need to pay to keep it going. Because I mean, what's it to them when you got $7 trillion or whatever? I mean, you can give everybody $1 million, and it still doesn't touch it still doesn't make a dent in your first trillion.
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean, it definitely seems like that. BlackRock like is one of the major players, and they, like we've said already, they essentially rule the world. But it is kind of interesting, right? You brought up like potential regulations of SEC, and now we're having a lot of presidential candidates kind of come out and talk about Bitcoin, right? I mean, we've had RFK Jr., we've had Vivek, we even had DeSantis kind of say that we could still do Bitcoin, so to speak. So, what do you kind of take any weight in that, like politicians kind of coming around to that? Because it seemed like 2 years ago we had, during the midterm, or I guess a year and a half ago, we had a bunch of politicians come out on Twitter Spaces and talk about, Bitcoin when it came to, Senate and some of these other races. But now we're having major political, like presidential candidates come out and make a lot of waves when it comes to talking about Bitcoin. So, do you hold any weight in that? Are you skeptical, or are you kind of, almost like all in on some of these Bitcoin candidates? Like, how do you feel about it?
Well, it seems to me like DeSantis I don't feel like he really knows that much about what he's talking about. I feel like he's just reading some notes for some reason. That's just the feeling I get. Now, I think Kennedy and Ramaswamy, I think they do understand Bitcoin. Ramaswamy doesn't make it a big part of his thing as much as Kennedy's making his. And actually, on the Kennedy front, we just this was a hard process to do. We just got the contact to talk to who asked us to send them an invitation to have him at BitBlock Boom. I gave him not only the invitation, but all the answers to the questions they wanted to know about the size of it, where it was located, blah, 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 blah. And that went off today, to them. So we're hoping we can make that work. It's kind of a short time window, but they knew it was a short time window when they asked me to send it to them. So, but it's not like they reached out to me. I worked real hard with my contacts to find out the right person, to talk to. But they weren't interested. They just said it's too late, or no. They wouldn't have said, send this to me as quick as you can. So I liked. I'm really, to me personally, Bitcoin is a big thing, and I don't want to say I'm a one horse voter, that I have one thing I'm voting on that concerns me. But if you really get down to it, to me, the Democrats and the Republicans pretty much all do the same shit. They all just screw up everything. I mean, so if someone's going after that one thing that I am really, really interested in and makes a big difference to me, they have a chance to pick up my vote. Because, like I said, they're all, as far as I'm concerned, they're all the same thing when you get down to it. I think there's only so much a president can do because of all the power out there of the people with money that have special interests. So I think they're limited as to what they can do. I don't think any one person can make that big a difference. But I think they could on Bitcoin, and that's a big thing to me, to be concerned with.
Yeah, and it's interesting though, because you bring up like any one person kind of trying to do something, right? And I want to kind of dive into a little bit of RFK, and it's extremely awesome that he might be at BitBlock Boom. So yeah, keep us updated on that. But he brought up potentially backing the dollar with Bitcoin and other hard assets like gold and real estate and other things like that. So
I saw that. That was a kind of a exciting thing to say. That seems to me a hard thing to say. And he was going to do that slowly too. I think he was going to start with maybe 10% or something of the U.S. bonds or something. So it wasn't like overnight. So if you're starting out that slowly, I don't even know if you could get that done in 4 years.
Yeah, that was what I was going to ask, is like, what do you think like about that, like even being potentially done? Because yeah, I mean, it seems like it's going to be a long-winded process. And two, it seems like, he is on the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party so far has been very anti-Bitcoin, it seems. Yeah. So it seems like, if he gets into office, he's going to have a lot of roadblocks, not only, just because a president can't really do too much in 4 years, but he might even have some own roadblocks from his own party. So, as it kind of stands right now, it seems like the implementation of this stuff in the United States is going to take a president at least 2 terms, and it's going to take like multiple Bitcoiners on both sides of things. So it seems like we're still, as much as we love to say it in the Bitcoin space, we're still very early. But it's encouraging that we're talking about the potential of Bitcoin being on the ballot, so to speak, in this election. So
that's a big move this time compared to the last elections. The fact that in 4 years, all of a sudden, some people are using it as their front category. I mean, if you can be guaranteed the right to store your own Bitcoin in your own wallet, and you don't have to pay capital gains on Bitcoins, if he just gets that accomplished, that's 2 big accomplishments for Bitcoin.
Oh yeah, that's huge. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm less optimistic about the capital gains, because it seems like, at this point, the government wants to get their money wherever they can. Yeah. And I think that's as long as they have the KYC kind of requirements, everybody who's bought on an exchange will, unfortunately kind of have to go about that.
I think they're more worried. I think they're more likely. I know that's what we want, is no capital gains, but I think they're more likely to come up with a tax that if you own over a certain amount of Bitcoin, that you have to pay more tax or something. I mean, if they look in your wallet, if you sold some Bitcoin, now people that have wallets that nobody knows are their wallets. There could be a wallet sitting there with 1,000 Bitcoins in it and no one knows who it is. But if you're like me and you told people to send you Bitcoin, they pay for Bitcoin on BitBlock Boom, they pay for Bitcoin. With Bitcoin, well, that's going into a wallet. So you can say, oh, there's the BitBlock Boom wallet. It has this much money in it. So I would think it's more likely that they decide they need to tax that with a special crypto tax. Yeah, they probably would tax them all, not just Bitcoin. But I would think that would be more likely than them dropping capital gains.
Yeah, and that's kind of interesting. I don't have they've never done anything like that though before, right? Like if you own a certain amount of I don't know, gold or silver or something along those lines, right? I mean,
no, they just took your gold.
Yeah.
So they didn't do that. But they now have
then, right? That's 100% tax, right?
Yeah, that's better than taking all our Bitcoin, I guess.
Yeah.
But but in San Francisco, and they're starting to in Chicago, I think. Now this is city government. I'm not sure if it's the state or the city, but anyway, they're getting ready to have a mansion tax, which is kind of like that. And anytime you sell a house that's over $1 million, which I definitely wouldn't consider $1 million house a mansion, especially not in San Francisco. But anytime you sell a house over $1 million, like when you sell a house right now, you pay 6% to the realtor. Maybe you can talk them down to 5%, and get them to move. Well, now you'll pay the 5%, 6% to the realtor on that $1 million house, and you'll pay 3% mansion tax. That's almost the same thing, isn't it? As what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that is in a sense. And that yeah, I agree with you 100%. I've seen some of these homes in San Francisco that are priced for $1 million and they're like single story, like
no yard.
No yard, 3-bedroom. It's nothing compared to Texas. That's why, I grew up in Austin. So, now maybe $1 million in Austin isn't as far as it was when I was growing up. But still, like those houses, that are $1 million plus in Austin are usually pretty nice homes. So
my house is under $1 million, and I have 5 bedrooms, 6.5 baths, swimming pool, 2-story, 3-car garage, pool, and and it's way under $1 million.
Yeah,
so yeah, and I have a yard. So yeah, I'm just saying, I would have more of $1 million of a mansion than those people in San Francisco, and I wouldn't have to pay that tax even if they had it here. So I think that's a fiat tax. That's a pretty fiat kind of tax to do. But if they can do that, is all I'm saying. If they can do that, and if that's constitutional to do, I'm sure it'd be constitutional to charge everybody on their Bitcoin. They go, that came out of a wallet that has 1,000 Bitcoin in it. Well, you don't pay 20% capital gains. You pay 50%. I'm just making up numbers.
Yeah, no, I gotcha. I get your point though, but you kind of brought up like the fiat kind of mindset and like the taxing of all that kind of stuff. So I'm curious, how, since you've gotten into Bitcoin and kind of like gone down the rabbit hole, learned all these various things about the hard money principles and kind of like the inflation, all that kind of stuff that Bitcoiners know and love to spout and talk to people. How do you think that this has changed your mindset when it comes to things like a home or a new car, or even like some of the the keeping up with the Joneses kind of aspects of kind of, I guess, American culture right now?
Well, I think that what the thing about Bitcoin is, once you really go down the rabbit hole, you know things and understand things that you never knew before. Like I didn't even know the word fiat before I got into Bitcoin. As hard as that is to believe, I didn't even know that word. So once you go down the rabbit hole, I think it happens to everybody. They start thinking differently on spending their money. I don't know, maybe Michael Saylor does it, because he has enough money that he can still buy $150 million worth of Bitcoin and still live like he wants. But I think the average person is like my car that I drive. When we had a big business deal go through maybe 4 years ago, kind of a windfall, and my wife wanted to buy a new Lexus, and so we bought a new Lexus for her, And I said, no, I think I just sell my car and keep your old Mercedes and drive that around because it was kind of a sports car. And instead of buying a new car, and then I bought Bitcoin, for actually about the same amount of Bitcoin, maybe a little bit less dollar value than she bought for her car. And so now every time we go somewhere in her car and she says how much she loves it, I go, yeah, you paid like $250,000 for this car, And she goes, and she's sick of hearing it now because my Bitcoin went up, and her car has gone down, So by driving no car, but I think everybody wants to save money, to not spend it foolishly. I think Bitcoin teaches you that, fish your money away. I feel that we're all taught, because of the way the money system is set up in the United States with inflation, we're taught to spend our money, that it's good to spend our money and not save our money. I've even had people tell me, I said, man, this inflation's out of control. And they go, yeah, but little inflation is good for us. It's good for the company. I go, well, why? And what's good about it? I go, there wasn't any inflation for hundreds of years. And they've been telling us 2% is what they want. And that's good for us. What's good about it? What can you tell me what makes it better for society for us to lose 2% of our value of what we've worked and saved every year? So if you save that money for 10 years, man, you've lost some money at 2% per year, and they never can, But people think that in their mind that inflation's not a bad deal. Either that, or they don't think about it like they will under hyperinflation. When they go, I got to spend this paycheck today because it'll be worth less tomorrow. But they still think, there's a lot of people who think, I need to spend this on something instead of saying I need to put it in the bank, because it'll be worthless. I think subconsciously they think that. So I need to just go ahead and spend it. But when we hit hyperinflation, they'll really start thinking it. Oh my gosh, speaking of hyperinflation, I know we're not there yet, but is stuff expensive now? Or is that just an old person thing?
No, it's expensive.
Oh my gosh. I ordered, just in a year, stuff is expensive. Like I was ordering banners for BitBlock Boom. They normally cost me, the pop-up banners, I had the shells are good and you just replace the banner, the vinyl inside of it. Last year, that vinyl was like $30. This year, that vinyl is $52. In 1 year for a piece of vinyl. That's a big expense. That's like 40%? That's a big increase in a year.
Oh, that's a giant increase. And I don't even think it's just like, that, right? I mean, I think like, people have almost become accustomed to the inflated prices of things, right? I mean, when it first started to happen, right? I mean, the eggs were kind of making a joke around all around Twitter, and gas, right? I mean, but I'm still driving around here in Tampa, Florida, and gas is still $3.50 plus. Like, it's not $4, but it's still in between $3.50 and $4. And it hasn't come back down, and I don't foresee it coming back down anytime soon. So I think, like I said, like people are just kind of being accustomed to these higher prices now, where wages aren't really going up. And so I think people are just saving less, right? I mean, like, you brought it up, right? I mean, people are kind of like accustomed to just spending a little bit more because their value of their dollars, like losing less, and then they're taught, put your money in a savings account in the bank and it's safe. But, we've seen banks blow up. We've seen, a lot of, and then we've seen like the inability to basically save, right? I mean, personal savings has gone down and credit card usage has gone, way up, right? And we still haven't even had student loans open up. We still have had, the Fed continuing to tighten. And, but, the job numbers are okay, allegedly. I mean, I don't know how that's kind of happening. So, with all this kind of, hubbub around everything, like, does that worry you kind of going into the next, having maybe potential bull market? Because Bitcoin's been around for, since like late 2008 ish time. So, I mean, since that time, it's basically every cycle has been, when the economy is fairly healthy. And now it's going to be, the next halving is going to occur potentially in the midst of a recession. So does that worry you at all?
That doesn't worry me that much. I mean, maybe it should because we haven't experienced it before. But I really don't consider that an issue. I think Bitcoin is just going to keep doing its deal. And I think more people will start moving to Bitcoin because of that. I think or I feel Bitcoin has nowhere to go but up. Too much has been built on it. You know, all these ETFs possible is just the latest thing. I mean, it just shows we're winning, and we'll continue winning, and we'll keep winning, and we'll keep winning, and people won't be able to get enough of it. There will be a point where we will see it go crazy, and people will be going the opposite of your stuff going down so fast that you want to spend it, it's going up so fast you want to buy it. That'll happen someday. As to when, I don't know, but yeah, I'm not worried about the next couple of years. Even though we are going to have inflation, we are going to see recessions, and we're going to see things in the Bitcoin world that's never happened. I think I'm not concerned.
All right, I like that answer. Yeah, because I mean, for me too, I kind of think that, once the Fed starts to pivot and maybe go change directions, like people are going to be flocking to things like Bitcoin. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. I think Bitcoin's going to be
Yeah.
all right. But I want to dive into BitBlock Boom a little bit. So
Sure.
let's start on a broad level. Like, what's your overall goal with the conference, and why do you think it's set apart from every other conference?
Well, we're probably, I would say we're probably the strictest Bitcoin conference as far as being a Bitcoin maximalist conference. We're probably stricter than anyone else. I know there are other people, and there are other Bitcoin conferences. I'm not saying we're the only Bitcoin conference, but I think you have different levels of Bitcoin conferences. I put it one end, maybe I just call it Bitcoin Miami because it's always in Miami. I guess I can call it Bitcoin Nashville now. I'd put that at one end. I mean, I think I've actually heard them say their only guidance for being at their conference as a vendor or sponsor is you have to do something with Bitcoin. I mean, they may have changed their policy and I may have understood it incorrectly. I'm not knocking them. I'm just saying I think that's their rules. If you do something with Bitcoin, you're welcome to come because you're a Bitcoin company. You may also do something with Hex, and you may also do something with Ethereum, and something with Litecoin. But you do have Bitcoin, so you qualify. Where mine is pretty much I would put mine at the opposite extreme. And I think Rega is the same as mine. They have the same beliefs as I do. I'm not saying I'm the only one in the world, but I think I'm one of the strictest in the U.S. And mine, if you can't do anything with Bitcoin, or you'll be asked to leave. I've given money back to people. I gave someone $10,000 back last year, sponsor, because I didn't think they were Bitcoin enough. I had somebody contacted me last week wanting to speak. They said they would take the silver spot or the gold sponsorship for $17,000 if they got a speaking slot. All they needed was 10 minutes. I was going, wow, that's a nice offer there, $10,000. Let me see what's going on. I looked at their speaking session in Miami, and I was going, oh my God, this guy can speak at my conference. Too much talk about NFTs and his crew and how his stock was doing better than Bitcoin. I mean, introduced basically his whole crew up there. So I think ours is. I feel personally there are a lot of people who are into Bitcoin only. Okay, and if you're into Bitcoin only, if you're like me, I designed a conference that I wanted to go to. That's all I did. I didn't know if anyone had one. I didn't care if anyone had one. I did what I wanted to go to. And if you're like me and you're just into Bitcoin, you do not want to hear another person when you say, I'm only into Bitcoin, and they go, they're not even into Ethereum? Like that's some strange surprise. If I hear that again, I think I'm going to blow up, So I don't go to crypto events ever because of that. The reactions I get and the bullshit I get here from people trying to convince me to buy Pirate Coin. Or I was in an elevator with a guy one time from Pirate Coin when that first came out. Oh my God, that was the elevator ride from hell. So there are a lot of people like that, though, who feel just like I do. I mean, I knew that it was terrible and most of them, they all are. And I don't want to hear about it. And a lot of people don't want to hear about it. If you're that guy in North Dakota, let's face it, North Dakota doesn't have a lot of people. I would say you're from Alaska, North Alaska. You don't have any friends that even have Bitcoin. You could be the only person in the town that has any Bitcoin. And if you got into it early and you're a whale, you definitely don't know anyone at your level that knows as much about Bitcoin as you do. So you want to go to an event with like-minded people. And that's what I tried to create, is people who are like-minded Bitcoin people. I'm not saying I have that much Bitcoin, but I'm saying I have that belief in Bitcoin that I don't want to hear about anything else. I don't care about anything else. Sometimes I do when I'm on YouTube. I watch about other things because I'm curious to see how big a scam it was. I go, I knew that Hex was a damn scam. Or I knew that was a scam. WorldCoin, oh my gosh, it just confirms what you think. But I don't want to have to deal with those people when I go to a conference and dodge those people. And a lot of people don't. And that's what Bitcoin Boom is. You don't have anyone to dodge. If you're a Bitcoiner, everybody there you'd enjoy sharing an Uber with, or you'd enjoy sitting down and eating dinner with, the whole crew. If not, they get reported to me and I go talk to them. I did have, for instance, at a party in 2022 in Dallas, 22 or 21, someone was there and he was talking about Ethereum, maybe, or I can't even remember what it was. Could have been Zcash. I'm not sure. And two people came up to me and said, this guy over here is talking about Zcash. I was like, really? So I go over there because I don't have any problem addressing it. I go, dude, you're about to get kicked out of the whole conference, and this is the first night for talking about Zcash. He goes, I wouldn't talk about Zcash. That's bullshit. Let's face it. Two people came up that don't even know each other. Because I pretty much know the majority of people. It's a small world. He goes, okay, I'm sorry. I won't talk about it again, I promise. I said, okay, one more time and you're out. I'm just letting you know right now. And you won't get your money back. And I had no issues with him at all. So people come and tell me. Because I don't want any shit coinery at my events. I don't want them from vendors. I don't want them from people there. So I think people appreciate that. And that's who I'm catering after. I'm not catering after the most. I could have a lot more people if I opened it up. I'm sure I could quadruple the size of the event because we got 22,000 shitcoins now. So I'd have to quadruple the event if I opened it up. Hell, if I even opened it up, so it just had to be, one thing that not having, allowing people to have anything to do with shitcoins is I really can't get but how many exchanges can I get? River? And is anyone else? I guess you could consider Swan and then Chain to exchange, but they're really not, even though I don't consider them exchanges. So exchanges, basically, if you go to most of those conferences, they're the biggest sponsor. The top guy that paid $50,000, $100,000 to be an exchange, because they make it both ways, coming and going. Whether you lose or win, they're making money, and I can't get any of those. So I'm hampered to a degree, but it's okay.
Yeah, but no, I definitely resonate with that. But I agree too. Like sometimes I have to peek in on the shit coins to see what's going on, right? I don't know if you saw the video going around Twitter yesterday, but it seems like there's going to be a documentary that's coming out on Netflix of Richard Hart, I think, like the creator of or whatever. And he like brings up basically like, hey, if you listen to people like me, you're gonna get scammed. Like in this documentary, and it's the same day that the SEC is suing this guy. Coincidental timing, to say the very least, right? I guess it was just like kind of a matter of time for all these things to happen. But
I used to watch him before Hex came out, and my wife and I would watch him and just laugh because he's so fucking crazy. He'd be a big fat guy wearing a real tight T-shirt all the time and saying how smart he was and how everybody else was an idiot compared to him. And he was always the smartest guy in the room. And if you didn't agree with him, you just were a dumbass idiot. He is really, if you sit down and watch him talk and sit back with the right frame of mind, it really is a funny show to watch. Now he's even really done it up even more with his outfits he wears and stuff. I haven't seen a show with him lately, but I saw pictures of him walking around in his outfits, his Gucci outfits, and on Twitter, his Prada outfits. That's just got to be a hoot if he's wearing those outfits when he's doing his show now with his attitude, how funny that is. And with those outfits, it'd be like watching Bozo the Clown.
Yeah, no, the guy is just like, it's a giant clown show. I don't understand like what he's doing. But back to BitBlock Boom, you do have an outstanding list of speakers, right? You already kind of mentioned potentially RFK, but you've got Max Kaiser, Stacy, Parker Lewis, Preston Pish, Tone Bays, Guy Swan. The list goes on and on and on. So with all this, you said you kind of keep it limited, right? Because you want to keep it as a Bitcoin Maxi conference. which is great. And I went last year and I really enjoyed it. So, what is kind of, I guess, I guess when you're talking to a lot of these speakers, a lot of these big name people that come in and discuss and have talks and, are kind of interacting with all the other Bitcoiners, like, what is, I guess, the general vibe that they give you following that conference compared to, maybe the Bitcoin Miamis or some of the other bigger ones where, they have the 50,000 people, where this one just has a few thousand?
I don't know. I've never been asked that question before. I have to think. I always hear positive things, that's for sure. And they always want to come back for the most part and speak again. So as far as the speakers go, they like that it's a smaller conference. It's not 10,000 or 30,000 people. I think everybody likes the fact that it's not a bigger conference. I know for a fact that attendees like it being a bigger conference because if someone comes to a bigger conference, usually they're shuffled in the back room, from the back room behind stage, and they come on stage talking, and they leave out the back room, and you might not ever have a chance to talk to them, and maybe you were hoping to meet them. Where at BitBlock really people pretty much come out of the audience and go behind stage, and then go up on the stage, and then they come back down and go back out in the audience. So like one time, someone I can't remember who told me that, said they were at a bar at one of our parties, because we throw a lot of parties, and they looked over by the bar, and there was standing Pierre Richard, Seyfedine Moose, and someone else. I can't remember who the person was. So they went and just hung by him, for a few minutes, because they were kind of intimidated to say hi, because they were kind of like, they idolized them, I guess would be the word. But then when they finally worked up the nerve to say hi, they found out, they were great guys. And they spent like a half an hour standing at the bar talking to these guys who were, he really idolized. And that happens a lot. That happens a lot at BitBlock Boom, an awful lot. And I know there's a word for that. Someone told me, do you like blah, blah, blah? And I don't know the word, but it was like, the word was like, go standing by people who are famous, hoping you'll get to meet them. And I say, no, I just go up and say, hey, and stick out my hand. So there's a word for that. But people like that fact that people are there in the audience. They like that an awful lot. And the speakers do, they aren't like, oh, I don't want to talk to you. You don't have enough Bitcoin. I mean, but people are scared that they are like not worthy, kind of like to go from Wayne's World, this isn't Alice Cooper up there. This is a guy who's a fellow Bitcoiner.
Yeah. And I think like, that was kind of the vibe I got as well when I was there, right? Is a lot of people kind of like that aspect of it. It's a more of an intimate conference, right? I mean, you can go to the hotel bar or, some of these parties and just kind of go up and talk to, some of the quote unquote bigger names in the space. And it's great that, they just kind of want to hang out with the plebs, right? They just, kind of.
They are plebs. They are plebs.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that once you get well known, you're no longer, of the same mind frame as someone who's new. I mean, you still have the same mind frame as someone who just got into. Maybe you have a lot of knowledge, but someone who's like, when I understand and I want to like follow the Bitcoin path, I want to be on the right path. You're on the same path. You're all on the same path. You're all. I don't want to say we're all brothers in the same thing, but we all are going towards the same place. The main difference between Bitcoiners and shitcoiners is really a simple thing. It really is. While both of them don't have any problem making money, and there's nothing wrong with making money. I'm as capitalist as you get, and I'm more than happy to admit it. I like capitalism. But shitcoiners just are worried about capitalism and making their money. Where Bitcoiners, the majority, I mean, there may be some who don't want to make any money, but the majority of them want to make money too, but they realize that they're involved in something that can change the world. Where shitcoiners don't care if the world changes or not, as long as they're making their money. I don't think there's any shitcoin out there where they all, whether it's Ethereum or whether it's, I'm going from one extreme to the other there, I think. They're all shitcoins. But there's none that they're going, we are worried about saving the world. And I'm not saying we're worried, maybe that's the wrong thing, but they feel like they're involved in something saving the world, and they want the world to be saved because they realize the difference Bitcoin is going to make in the world to have real currency, to have real money, to have sound money. That's not happening with the other ones. But with Bitcoin, the majority of people who are really into it, especially Bitcoin maxis, they realize the reason they're maxi is they realize this has the potential to save the world, and that's what they want to do. So that's my deal on that. I think Bitcoin is world-changing stuff. If Bitcoin wins, the whole world will be better off. Everybody will be better off.
Yeah, and I love that, and I think
I truly believe that.
Yeah, and I believe it too, and I think that's that's a great place to wrap it up right there. I mean, how can we come back after that? So, Gary, thank you so much for giving me your time today and coming on to the show. So, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you and what all you got going on?
I'm just Gary Leland most everywhere, and then for some reason I was late. I wasn't paying attention, and someone got Gary Leland on Instagram. Some Gary _Leland. But I also want to make sure everybody knows. When you look at BitBlock, there's a lot of different things. I have a lot of people who go and this is fine for people to do. And they go, gosh, I can't afford to go to everything. But I have a lot of people who just go to the Friday night party. Because most of the attendees and most of the speakers are there. And then they hang out in the hotel, lobby. LobbyCon, I think, was created at BitBlock Boom. So I tell people that if they're around Austin, they should come hang out at the hotel even. But they probably should go to the Friday night party if they're within driving range, for sure. The Friday night party is worth going to, and the hotel is definitely worth hanging out.
Yeah, for sure. The networking in there, and yeah, LobbyCon is great. I mean, I attended the conference last year as well, but I think that's. I mean, the speakers are obviously all great, and the talks are outstanding. So we definitely attend those. But the interactions that you get just kind of hanging out in the lobby, that's what I always love, or why I always love going to these conferences. So I look forward to BitBlock Boom, and Gary, thanks for all you do, and thanks for coming on, man.
Oh, thanks for having me on. It was nice to meet you in person.